Well, good morning and welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us. My name is Dwayne Henderson, and I'm a member of the Cree Lighting Training and Education team and host of our e-learning series. For those watching live, happy Monday. I hope you all had a great weekend. Just a quick overview of the sessions. Once we get started, there'll be roughly 15 minutes of content. The presenters will make themselves available for Q&A at the end of each session. The participants are muted, but we do encourage you all to send us either via chat or the Q&A box questions, and feel free to type those during the presentation if you would like. As you know, if you've been a regular viewer of the content, Monday it's design-related content, and today's session will be focused on street lighting. To lead us through the session, I'd like to welcome back Jim Blair from our applications department, and he's joined today by Sean Harris from our product marketing team. Good morning, boys.
Good morning.
Good morning, Dwayne.
Real quickly, thanks, Jim. Hey, real quickly, guys, Jim, maybe you first, just a real quick summary of your role within the business, and then Sean will have you follow up.
Sure thing.
Absolutely. I lead the applications group with Frank Tempesta. I've been with this group for about 12 years.
And I'm the senior product manager with responsibilities on the outdoor team with responsibilities for street lighting, and I've been with Cree for just under 8 years.
Perfect, great. All right, Jim, we're going to have you kick us off, and then Sean's going to come in towards the back end of the presentation.
Sounds good. Thanks again, Dwayne. Over the past several weeks, I've defined the recommended practices for you, and they are, again, the consensus-formed lighting recommendation from a knowledgeable and diverse group of lighting stakeholders that help guide the lighting design and product selection process. Essentially, they help us make good quality lighting design choices. Let's get started today by understanding a bit more about the RP818 and what it covers. Last week, we dove deeply into parking garages. This week, we're going to look at roadways, and while that's a broad term that covers many different types of roads, highways and interchanges, intersections and roundabouts, underpasses and tunnels, as well as the parking structures, which we covered. So basically everywhere there's vehicular traffic. Our focus today is going to be mainly on street lighting. We measure light in a few different ways, and I want to help you understand before we dive in today. I'm going to do my best to over-enunciate these two words because it'll be confusing if I don't. These words are illuminance and luminance. Illuminance is a simple measure of direct light from a light source. The units are in foot candles, or lux, and readings can be taken with a normal direct light meter. Luminance, on the other hand, is the measure of a light being emitted from a surface, measured in candela per meter square. This is a bit more challenging to measure because this introduces two new variables, which are the surface reflectance and the observer to that surface. Measurements of reflections are taken 83 meters back from the calculation point. There's actually a third measurement called STV, or small target visibility. We're not going to get into this today, but this measures a specific point as it relates to its background. This is available upon request and needs a little bit more information. Next, let's look at a few instances where good lighting can provide a safe and visually comfortable situation for drivers and pedestrians. The ultimate goal that the RP is trying to cover here is to reduce the potential for crashes. The first picture shows a great example of disability glare and shows the importance of having good vertical foot candles. The second image here shows the importance of good color quality. Some lights reproduce colors a little bit better than others, and the ability for us to create that visual contrast against the background promotes good visual quality for drivers and pedestrians. And then further along the page, we can see a roundabout. This has the highest potential areas for conflict with vehicles and pedestrians. You can see all of the different areas that are entering the roundabout, as well as the crosswalk in the picture. We also need to respect the environments that we're lighting. You can see in the lower left, we have an example of a post-op light being placed very near a residential area. We need to respect these environments and the people that are in these spaces. We also need to improve the ability to service and install these products, as you can see in the lower right. Roadways break down into three different classifications. local, collector, and major. Local roadways provide direct access to residential, commercial, and abutting properties. Collector basically serves to connect the local and major roadways. Major roadways are what serve a city, basically all the roadways that enter and leave a city. There's a second level to the criteria that is important to understand. This is the pedestrian volume. This is a high, medium, and low value. The high pedestrian classification is a commercial area, maybe an urban environment with high nighttime pedestrian traffic. This is often cluttered and needs a higher horizontal and vertical value of light. Image 1 shows a very good populated street or crosswalk in a downtown city. Medium pedestrian classification is moderate pedestrian traffic. That might be near libraries or rec centers. You can see the moderate level of pedestrian traffic in the middle image. And then low pedestrian traffic would be in a rural setting or county roads, major highways, basically where no pedestrians or bike paths exist. Our final variable that we want to determine is the roadway surface classification. This comes in R1, R2, and R3, and R4 values. R1, this can be a smooth surface that has good contrast with the white or yellow lines that are present with a stark black background. R2 and R3, this is where we standardize in our calculations. To be conservative, unless we're told differently, this is kind of where our design work lives. And then R4, that would be a clean concrete type of value. We would use that for maybe a larger highway or a specifically noted concrete street. The reflectance is about 0.08 value here, so it might bump some of our numbers up. We tend to play it safe, again, where we look at worn asphalt and dirty concrete. We want to give that value over time again. We're going to look at a specific example in a moment, but I want to pause here and mention a few variables that exist in street lighting. You can see the lighting upgrade. We might have existing poles, certainly heights are defined in that case, arm length, pole spacing is defined. The roadway geometry is always defined. These are our fixed variables that we have when we come into a design. If we have a new development, conversely, we actually use those variables above that we have the ability to flex on, such as the spacing, the mounting height, arm length. All of those will be variables and tools that we can now use to make a good lighting design and find the best value. It really helps us optimize. So we're going to look at the specific example now. I put this together. Going through the checklist, we have a roadway application. It is a local with a medium pedestrian conflict. And the pavement classification, like I said, is the R2 and R3. The recommended practices mandate that we recommend that we use a 0.5 candela per meter square average here, 6:1 average to min, 10:1 maximum to minimum. So like I was talking about, the ability to flex or fine tune and optimize the solution, I really took advantage here of the pole height and arm length, and then the spacing to achieve exactly that result. So we're looking at a 30-foot wide, 2-lane local roadway with a 4-foot setback, and I added some sidewalks and crosswalks. So because I had the ability to do that, I was able to bring in our Treveo small with a type 2ME optic using approximately 5,000 lumens to achieve exactly the metrics that we needed to meet. So it's important to note that when the recommended practices ask us to do a straight piece of roadway, they want us to do it in candela per meter square. In areas where there's high pedestrian classes or present, basically we are able to use the illuminance method at that point. So if you have a roundabout, an intersection, on and off ramps, areas where there's high pedestrian traffic, you can use the illuminance method and it's recommended. So here I'm using a 22-foot mounting height in a staggered position to achieve that 0.5 and all of the uniformity criteria that we have. When you measure this 281 feet spacing, same side spacing is appropriate for measuring the staggered configuration. So when all of these values are open to me, I can optimize and find the best value. If somebody had come to me and said, hey, Jim, you can only use the 3ME optic here, or you can only use, you know, such and such lumens, or you're limited to this, even wattage is fine, but if you're limited to things, it may provide, you know, we might have used 250-foot spacing here instead of 281, therefore having to purchase more product. I want to mention also the lumen maintenance factor is the other concern. You know, if we're asking for a 0.90 lumen maintenance factor, you know, we could be showing values far beyond what we could. If our maintenance factor at 50,000 hours is 0.99, we're taking a lot of value there off the table. So make sure that when you're putting fixed variables in place, they're in a meaningful way. So with that, I'd like to hand the presentation off to Sean Harris.
All right, thank you, Jim.
Hey, Sean, it looks like you got over your fear of heights, huh?
Yeah, that's a little sketchy there, but it's one way to get to them. So you go ahead and go to the next slide for me. It's a really, really funky picture. All right, so before we dive into the products individually, I want to just take a second to cover the full range of products that we have. And as you can see here, we've got 3 different families, the RSW, the Nexus P, and the Treveo. And each of them cover the range from what we we'll have a 70-watt HPS all the way up to a 400-watt HPS, or another way to look at it is through the lumens, from anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 lumens all the way up to 32,000 lumens. And by having these 3 families that cover this, we're able to address the areas that Jim was talking about earlier with either the local resident streets, the collector roads, or the major roads and highways. Next slide, please. We're going to start out with the RSW. This is our spec grade product. And if you were on the webinar last week, then you heard Dawn talking about the IG parking garage light that uses a WaveMax. And this is another product that we utilize the WaveMax in. And the benefit here from a street lighting standpoint is that this distributes a smooth, even lighting into the application. And while that works well in collector roads and highways, it's very beneficial in the residential settings. Another thing that you'll note on this product here, again, they all cover the ranges from like 70 to 400 watt. But one thing you'll notice here is that in the CRI, or I'm sorry, in the CCTs, we offer both 70 and 80 CRI as an option for the small and medium versions on these. And if staying with the CCTs for a moment, we cover from 2700 K8, which is 80 CRI, all the way up to a 5000 K. And what's coming soon is we're going to have some warmer color temperatures. We're starting to see a trend in the industry that's continuing into even warmer color temperatures. And we've got a 2200 coming soon, as well as a turtle light that'll be available soon. It's measured differently, but that provides a safe nesting ground for turtles on the coastal areas, as well as areas that need a different wavelength around, say, like observatories and such. So the RSW comes in 4 sizes, the small, medium, large, and extra large. And again, this one covers from 3,300 up to just under 32,000 lumens. Go to the next slide, please, for me. This is an application shot in San Francisco where we're using the RSW in a residential setting. And this is what I was talking about before with the use of the WaveMax technology in the optics. You can see we've got a very smooth and even distribution on the street light. But what's key here is it's not reaching out into the residential areas where it's not going up against the houses. So we've had a lot of good luck with this fixture, a lot of very happy customers. This has been a product that kind of helps prevent the phone from ringing once a fixture gets put installed, because it meets all of the technical applications that Jim was discussing, but it also keeps the residents happy because the light's not coming into the houses. Next slide, please. This is showing our XSP. This is the longest that we're talking about here today. This one's been out for 6-7 years now, and we have over 1 million fixtures installed around the globe on this, and the number continues to rise. This one comes in 3 sizes. You can see the small, medium, and large, and through those 3 sizes, we have the lumen packages that go from 5,000 up to 24,000 lumens. And another thing you'll note that's new on this one is the availability of other colors. That before we just had the silver that was available for the small, but the black and bronze for the larger sizes. Now it's available across all the sizes. So whether you're using this for a residential setting or maybe even a commercial setting where you need other colors, we've got the other colors available now. Another thing here, when Jim was talking about maintenance and being easy to use for the installers, all of the products that we're going to talk about share some sources, share some similar instances where they've all got toolless access, a toolless adjustable photocell receptacle. And then you'll notice here in the options on the far right, both the RSW and the XSP come with what we call our Q option or our X option. And what that does is it allows you to, the Q option allows you to adjust the lumen output in the field if need be, or we can lock it down with the X option and we program it at the factory. And what that does is it allows you, say you've got a fixture that, or an application that requires 3,500 lumens and you want to use the small, you can dial it down, again, either in the field or at the factory. Next slide, please. And this is an application shot of an XSP. And again, you can see the even distribution here. And then also going back to what Jim was talking about with the quality of light and the increased contrast, you can see how the yellow lines really pop, the pedestrian crosswalks really pop, and you can even see on the right-hand side of the screen just how good the grass looks underneath these fixtures. And what that's showing is just with that increased color quality, you do have a good visual acuity at night where we've got to be concerned with either walkers' safety or driving safety. Next slide, please. So finally, wrapping up our product offerings and product bit today with a Treveo series. This is our newest fixture that we've just released within the last year. It's a complete line of fixtures, comes again in 4 sizes, the small, medium, large, and extra large. And a note on that, we've also worked to streamline our nomenclature across the Roadway family so that everything is now consistent. So you'll see that naming structure is carried across all the lines, as is all the ordering information. But with the Treveo here, it does have a complete line of optics. It's got an even broader range of optics than the others. It's got a broad range of CCTs and comes standard with the UL, the UH options, so 122 to 277 or 347 to 480. This is a full metallic fixture across the whole family, where it's all the sizes are using full metallic. And again, this one does have toolless access as well as an adjustable photocell receptacle. And you'll notice one difference here. This one has the Q option, but not the X. So what that does is it allows you to be able to, again, you can adjust that in the field. So that's the way we do that with the Treveo. And the lumen ranges from there go from 2,000 lumens all the way to 30. So we did a good job of trying to cover all of them with the Treveo, but we do understand that in some instances you may need to back it down even additionally to meet local specs. Next slide, please. So this is kind of taking some of the information that you've seen before and overlaying the products, how they meet with the different applications. So for the local and residential streets, you can use any of the 3, the RSW, XSP, or Treveo, the small and medium, start to blend into from the local resident up to the collectors. And then as you get out onto the highway, the families all cover from the collector roads up into the major roads and highways, and you get up into replacing that 400-watt HPS lumen packages. So that's the full Roadway side. I think we're at the question section.
Great, thanks, Jim and Sean. So we do have some questions coming in. If you guys have more questions, please continue to use either the Q&A box or the chat box. Sean, we'll start with you. There's a couple of things on people's wish lists, it looks like. Mm-hmm. And the first questions are on the RSW and asking if we are working on a Type 4 and Type 5 optic for that product.
So we have worked on a Type 5. We didn't have a lot of call for it, so it got shelved a little bit. But if we have a need for that, we do already have a head start on working on that. And I see that's from Arctic Sales. So if you just reach out to us, let us know if you have an opportunity. We'll be happy to take a look at it.
And then another ask around the Treveo would be about a dolly option for that solution.
Yes, so we are working on that right now. We have we've found a technical solution, so we're just working to go through some of the final testing on that. I would say we should have dolly and Treveo definitely by the end of the year, but stay tuned to and working with the Roadway sales team or even the CNI sales teams, and we'll be sure to get that information out. But yes, that is definitely something we're working on for sure.
And I know Treveo is the newest launch product within the family of streetlights. There's a question here about if we've done any case studies around that product or examples of municipalities that might have used that solution.
So we don't have case studies yet, but we do have a couple of larger installations. Both of them are outside of the U.S. right now. We've got a large installation in Canada, and we've got some larger installations down in Latin America. Across the U.S., we have seen a good lift for the product, but as usual, what happens with roadway programs, they take a little bit to take off at the customer level. So we are starting to see smaller to medium order. We've had plenty of smaller to medium orders on that, but not enough yet to do a case study. And when the one in Canada gets finished, we'll be working to do a case study for there.
Perfect. All right, here's another one. Maybe this is you or Jim, but have you seen any local communities comparing LED to traditional sources complaining about lack of light on sidewalks?
I think that speaks to the optical configuration. I've not personally seen that. I've more and more we're integrating the sidewalks as part of the design studies because that pedestrian traffic, like we mentioned in the presentation, is so important, and the visual acuity not only from the pedestrian to the car, but the car to the pedestrian. So more and more that will become a thing, and we'll measure that in illuminance like we mentioned, but nothing really comes to mind as far as that ask.
Yeah, I think the one image you had early on, Jim, of the post op fixture. The one thing, I don't know if Sean, if you touched on, but we do have backlight solutions
Yes.
when it's going the other way. So if you have spill light hitting homes where that's problematic. So the trick is sometimes it's desirable to have some backlight, but too much might be a problem. And using the design process and the tools that we have, I think it's all about trying to hit the right metrics where you want to keep communities safe, but you also want to manage spill light and light trespass.
Yeah, Dwayne, that's actually a good point. We do have backlight shields for all three families, and we either have already released or in the process of releasing cul-de-sac shields. So think of it almost like a colander that protects it, from the back and the two sides as well. What's available now is on the spec sheets, and then the other ones are either in the process of being finalized or coming soon. So thank you, Jane.
And then, Sean, maybe this is yours. I mentioned a trend towards warmer CCTs. Are you seeing cities or states setting this as a requirement, in the kind of parentheses, kind of code driving some of this?
We saw that happen really quickly after the AMA announcement in 2016, where a lot of cities just immediately reacted and didn't want to be caught in a situation where they would be putting up products that could be considered dangerous or what have you. So we are seeing some cities and towns starting to do that as a requirement. It seemed to have started on the coasts, both the east and west coast, and it's working its way across the middle. So we've had them available for a long time. We had them available before the EMA announcement, and what we were able to do was just turn them on. So yes, we are starting to see some cities and areas have that as a requirement.
Yeah, the International Dark Sky Association also requires 3,000 additional uplight, 3,000 or lower CCTs. The reality is we have, Sean, you have a great selection of CCTs to pick from. So whatever is driving the requirement, we don't want to force people into thinking one is better than the other, but we want to have solutions that meet whatever the local needs are within the community. Yeah. So I think that's important to correct as well.
And one of the benefits with the LED versions going into the 2700 for sure, and even down into the 22, is we've got such a higher CRI that if you're comparing it to an HPS, an HPS can have a CRI in the low teens or 20s. and these are holding in the 70s. So even though you've got what is considered a yellowish light coming from the source, when you're down actually in the application, the colors, be it somebody's shirt, a car, or what have you, the colors do pop. So that's a benefit with what we've got here.
Okay, perfect. Sean, there's a question about RSW and bronze. We're doing that in bronze now, correct?
That is correct. Yeah, you can get all four sizes available in bronze, and I also see one right above it with Treveo in white. It's not on the spec sheet, but that's something, again, if we've got an opportunity, it's full metallic, so it can be painted. We just need to know about the opportunity and the timing associated with it, but don't hesitate to send in the request at least.
Okay, and then there was a question, Jim, about the reflective surfaces and how that might respond to different light distribution patterns. Is there any correlation between what pattern in those reflective surfaces, or does that not make much difference?
It does make a difference. For instance, if I can explain it really quickly, if you used a 4ME in example on a roadway, that angle of incident from the source hitting the surface would then bounce kind of off the roadway forward. If you use a Type 2ME or a Type 2S optic, you're basically allowing that that roadway to catch the illuminance and bounce it up towards the reflect up towards the observer. So you do see some value there. Actually, it reflects back to the observer technically. Yeah, the angle of incident coming out from the optic absolutely does influence the luminance of the street.
Perfect, thank you. Sean, there's a question here in the comment box about which luminaires qualify for Buy American Act. I don't know I know that sometimes can get kind of tricky. Can you comment on that?
Boy, that is a tricky one. So both RSW and XSP are built in Racine. So they're that's the only way they're built is out of our Racine factory. Whether or not they qualify for Buy American, I do believe both of those do. I need to double check though. Treveo has two different assembly options, one of which is assembled in the U.S. of U.S. and foreign parts. So if I can, and I can't see that the question's coming in anymore, but if we can write down who's looking for that, that's something we can definitely respond back to. But I do know that they do meet some forms of the Buy American, the XSP and RSW does.
Yeah, I know typically we reference the ARRA funded type projects. But certainly they meet that, but once you start getting into Buy American Acts and stuff like that, depending on how you're defining it, it might be going, item by item within a bill of materials sometimes. So
yeah, and we can provide
Yep. Perfect.
We can provide the.
I'll try to. Go ahead, Sean.
I was going to say we can provide I think it's called a letter of a certificate of origin as requested. We have that information available.
Okay. And then just to wrap up the Q&A here, there was a question about slides. Those will be made available. A PDF version is made available on CreeLink, so you can reach out to your Cree Lighting contact, whoever that might be within the channel. And then there's a similar question about the adder for the 10-year warranty on Treveo. RSW and XSP are standard with 10-year warranties. Treveo has a 5-year warranty with an optional 10-year. For what that specific adder is, again, we probably, Sean, want to reach out to the channel for that number, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely the best thing to do because it can vary based on size of project and such. But it's not a large adder, but it's best to reach out through the sales channel and get it priced.
All right, perfect. Well, I will wrap up. Jim, if you want to advance to our last slide, I want to thank everybody again for joining us. I also want to thank both Jim and Sean for their presenting the content today, and appreciate the questions we got today as well. So thanks to the audience. Just looking ahead for the remainder of the week, on Wednesday, we'll be diving into TM30, so getting a better understanding of what that is in terms of that color quality metric. And then on Friday, our control session will be around integrating with Lutron. And then looking forward to next week for the recommended practices, Jim will be looking at office spaces. So that'll be the designed content for next week. Again, all the sessions are being recorded and posted to our YouTube channel. So we do encourage people to catch up there, and please subscribe. With that, we'll close up the session. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and everybody have a great week. Thanks.